And viewers who are watching us live on Facebook and YouTube, a very warm welcome to the Authors Saga series. A quick recap for those of you who are new to Pick a Book. Pick a Book is all about reading and more reading and inculcating the habit of reading, research, and presenting the summary of it in our regular meeting sessions. Creating a better world by changing the sense of self through the habit of reading is the vision of Pick a Book. Currently, Pick a Book marked its inspiring presence in four countries: Sri Lanka, India, Singapore, and UK, with over 1,200 readers, 19 plus regions, and 100,000 plus people inspired through our sessions in a span of 1.5 years. So, Pick a Book continues to spread its wings across the globe while we have come up with a new initiative, a brand of our own called Author Saga series. Where wherein the authors can reach their readers and like-minded individuals, with interest. Authors can also discuss the key insights of their books, and readers can have this wonderful opportunity to know more about the book from the author himself. So today we have with us Mr. Alex Perl with his wonderful book, 100 Ways to Write a Book. So quickly, let's get to know a little more about Mr. Alex. So Alex's first novel, Sleeping with Blackbirds, a darkly humorous urban fantasy written for children and young adults, was initially published in 2011. So it has since become a Kindle bestseller in US, and in 2014 he fictionalized Emma account of the first British serviceman to be executed for cowardice during the First World War, published by Mardi Books in its anthology. Okay, so the clock struck war. A selection of his blog posts is always available in paperback under the title Random Ramblings of a Short-Sighted Blogger. And in 2019, his psychological thriller, The Chairman, that is set in London in 2005, following the terrorist attack on its public transport system, was published as an ebook by Fizgig Press. So the paperback followed in 2020, and Alex lives in northwest London with his wife and two children who are smarter than this old man. So he's quite possibly the only human being on this planet to have been inadvertently locked in a record shop on a Christmas Eve. So a very warm welcome, Mr. Alex Pearl.
Thank you. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Very nice to be with you today.
Thank you. It's equally our pleasure to have you tonight. Okay, first of all, we all love to congratulate you on the success of this wonderful book, and we wish you a long way in writing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. So to start with, Mr. Alex, I want to know, were you an avid reader?
I'm not as avid as I'd like to be. I'm a slow reader. I take ages to get over books, and I tend to reread passages and stuff. So I do read. Obviously, I love reading, but some people are much faster. My wife, for instance, gets through many more books than I do. But
Okay.
having said that, of course, I do love reading. But I am a slow. In fact, I'm a slow reader and a slow writer. So maybe there's a correlation between the two. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay. That's great. Okay, so when did you do you remember when did you start reading books? Like what age?
Well, that's a good question. I suppose I can remember very vividly the first proper book I read, and that was when I was at primary school. And I suppose I must have been about I don't know, maybe 10, 11, something like that. And it was a book which I read again recently out of interest.
Mhm.
And I remember it exactly as I did then. It's a wonderful little book called it's by Clive King, and it's
Okay.
called Stig of the Dump, which is a
Okay.
strange title, and it's about this little boy who is at his grandparents' house in the countryside in England, and he discovers at the bottom of this garden a caveman or cave boy,
Mm.
and he has this sort of friendship with this little boy, and from the past.
Okay.
And of course, nobody believes him. And it's quite a moving story, and it's all about human relationships and trust. And it's quite delightful. It's quite clever, and I remember reading it, all those years ago. And I think it was an important book because it set the ball rolling, as it were. And after that book, I started reading more.
Okay.
Um, but I read it recently, and it's actually one of those books that it's beautifully written. The language is so simple, but very, very, very eloquently written, and there's no sort of spare words. It's a beautiful book, actually. I don't know what else Clive King wrote, but I think
Mhm.
that book was certainly was the probably the best known book he wrote.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was the first one. Yeah.
Great. Great to know that. Okay. So, and we are also keen to know how did your journey start as a writer? So, was it your childhood dream, or you just had the spark somewhere in between?
It's a good question. And the answer is, I think it was really probably by accident, really. If I'm honest, I was not particularly academic at school. I wasn't a great student. The only two subjects I was really any good at was art
Hmm.
and writing, creative writing. These were two subjects that the only two subjects I really enjoyed, actually. Um, and I was, I suppose, reasonably good at it. And it was, I mean, I ended up going to art college,
Hmm.
and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I teamed up with a guy, a very good friend, and he was better at drawing than me, and so he ended up becoming the artistic one. And I
Okay.
sort of gravitated towards words and ended up juggling with the words. So I became the copywriter. So and
Hmm.
then we got into advertising. So then my career in writing began, if you like.
Okay.
And I suppose it's quite a good breeding ground for writers or in fact, film directors, because it's all about conveying stories in a short form
Hmm.
in the advertising, and then particularly if it's creative, which at that time in the 1980s, I think London was sort of leading the field for creative advertising. So in many respects, it was very influential, and I enjoyed writing, and I got to enjoy doing that. And I came into contact with other writers, and in fact, at one point, I actually was very fortunate to sit next to at a dinner uh,
Okay.
Beryl Bainbridge, who's a famous novelist who's now sadly has died, but she was probably one of the greatest English novelists of the century, things like that kind of influence you really. So I think it was always in the back of my head that maybe one day I might write something more serious than just advertising copy. So that's how it all started. It wasn't really planned. It just kind of
Okay.
happened, really. Yeah, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great to know that. Okay, so is there any specific reason behind choosing this title, 100 Ways to Write a Book? Or is it just because you have, chosen to interview 100 different people, 100 different authors? So that struck
Yeah,
your mind.
another good question. Again, it sounds like there's a bit of a pattern happening here because that wasn't really planned either. To be perfectly honest, it was something I during lockdown when COVID was raging. I just thought I'd teach myself to build my own website because I didn't really have a proper website, and then I thought, well, it seems to be that there are quite a lot of authors giving interviews for websites, so I thought I'd put out some sort of social media posts saying if you're interested in doing an interview with me, I'd happily do that, and we'd put it on the website, and then I was absolutely inundated. I can't tell you how many responses. I was actually quite shocked. I had hundreds of them, and so anyway, so within a very short space of time, I had um, over 100 interviews on this website. So my brother-in-law, who used to be in publishing, and my own brother, in fact, said, "Well, why don't you publish this as a book? Because there aren't any books really that have so many authors giving their own opinions about how they write, their backgrounds and their working methods and so on." So I thought, yeah, it's a good idea. So I published it, and what I hadn't quite realised was how many pages it was going to be, because when you've got over 100 author interviews, and some of which are very long,
Okay.
you suddenly fill up a whole book. It's actually 684 pages, so it's quite a
Oh,
long book.
oh, it
But
is
in fact, I'm going to have to publish it in 3 volumes as well, because it's become a little bit too
too
pricey
big.
for some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the that's how it kind of evolved. And then I wanted to also give the proceeds to the charity Penn International, which is
Hmm.
a very really good organisation, which speaks up for authors in
Okay.
regimes that stifle their voices. So it's a very worthwhile charity. So, and I've spoken to them. They're very happy. They're going to support the initiative, which is great. And yeah, so that's all happening now. And yeah, so that it's kind of taken on a life of its own, really, which is
Okay.
great.
Wonderful. So, okay, so because as we are talking about interviewing, 100 authors, so why did you start this project in first place? I mean, I think this was started as a project on the whole, I mean, if I'm not wrong. Right.
Yeah,
So why is that, you have started something like this? So,
yeah. What it was, I mean, I'm sort of a writer myself. I'm interested in the process of writing, and very what motivates people, and also how they go about doing it. And one of the questions that really appeals to me is, and I like hearing people talking about it, is how they go about it, and whether they plan their novels very carefully, which I do, I have to say, and or if, indeed, if they just sit down and just have a very vague idea and then
mhm.
let the thing unfold and sort of evolve as they write. And I find that an interesting question, and writers do have very different approaches,
Mhm.
and which comes out in this book, and I find that fascinating.
Okay.
I mean, from my own point of view, I couldn't. I've tried, sort of trying to let the thing evolve and not have a very tight plan. It just doesn't work for me. I mean, the first thing I ever wrote was a book that got to about 15,000 words, and then I ran out of steam. I didn't know where it was going,
Mhm.
and I kind of abandoned it.
Okay.
And then the both books that follow um, were very, very carefully planned. I mean, they do evolve to some extent when I write them, but the plan is very much there,
Mhm.
and I know exactly where it's going. And I just couldn't write a book without having that roadmap in place.
Okay.
But that's the question that I do find interesting, because some writers are, who are prolific writers, write
Mhm.
without having a very detailed plan, and then in fact they say they could never have a plan because they find it stifles their own writing style, and they can't let the
Yes.
characters breathe. So it's an interesting question, and one I'm
Mhm.
always fascinated by. So
Great.
that's why I set it up in the first place. I'm also interested in the backgrounds of writers as well, because I think that's also quite interesting, just as an interesting point. And I'm yet to meet a writer that doesn't like talking about their work. So I suppose I shouldn't be surprised that I had such a big response.
Hmm.
But that's
Good.
how it came about, really. Yeah, it was my own
Awesome.
inquisitivity. Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Like how you said, everybody will have their own style of writing. So it's a good thing to, to put it up all their experiences of different authors and different style of writings all together in one book, to pen it
Mhm.
down in one book. It's going to be a great help for a lot of people out there who are, about to start their writing journey. So that's wonderful.
Yes.
That's a good
Yeah,
word.
I think it will be help. I mean, also what's very reassuring about reading it
Mm.
is also the fact that no writer's alone in the fact that it's not easy, and a lot of
Yeah.
the writers who are they're very honest, and they say that they find it hard, and some this is
True.
really
Yeah.
successful writers
Yes.
who end up sort of getting halfway through and then throwing it all away and starting again.
True.
That is kind of reassuring that's
Mm.
the case, and so you're not alone. And it's a process that although there's no hard and fast rules, it's
Yeah.
never straightforward, never easy, and there's no set key to doing it. It's quite
Yes.
reassuring to know that, because these people who some of whom are very successful,
True.
still
Exactly.
struggle a bit. That's part of the course. That's
Yes,
what it's all
it
about.
is. It is. It is. Okay. So what are the challenges you faced, when you first started writing the book?
Well, for me, I find the hardest thing actually is the planning stage. Actually, it's something I spend forever on, and and I'm not an experienced. I've only written two books, but um, I spent, I think, on, well, certainly, for both books, I think I spent longer planning it than
Mm.
writing it,
Okay.
and the first book's not a particularly long book. It's only about 120 pages, but although there wasn't any research involved, it took me a long time to get a storyline that I was happy with. Because for me, I suppose I'm
Mm.
quite old fashioned. I like a book to have a beginning, middle, and an end, and the ending is for me really important.
Yeah.
And It's always got to be a surprise, and if it isn't, it
Mm.
doesn't really work for me. And that's really, I find that really hard, actually. I have to say, I find that far harder than writing. And with my second book,
Okay.
I had probably spent a great deal longer planning it, because I
Okay.
had to do a lot of research. But that was the chairman. But yeah,
Okay.
the planning is by far the most difficult part for me,
Mm.
challenging,
True.
and I struggle with that. I freely admit that. That's
Us.
yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So, what is the role of, I mean, you must have done a lot of research and, you must be having a lot of experiences on that. So, what is the role of research and the role of experience in writing a book? What weighs more, like, especially for
Well,
you, what weighed more?
I think it's a good question again, because actually they're both really important, and I think a lot of people say you should write about what you know, which is
Hmm.
some which probably is true, but also you're inevitably going to write something that you don't know much about. But I think you need to inject both, really. I mean, for my first children's book, Sleeping with the Blackbirds, that was entirely based on my own imagination and
Okay.
experiences. And there's some
Okay.
characters in that there's a gardener in that who's based on a real gardener who couldn't make up. Who used to, from my childhood, he was disabled, but he used the gardening tools to prop himself up.
Okay.
And he was an amazing gardener. I mean, you couldn't make that up. I mean, that's based on truth. But
Hmm.
on for my other book, The Chairman, which is a thriller based on the London terrorist attack in 2005, I
Okay.
had to do a huge amount of research for that book,
Hmm.
because I wasn't that well versed in the ways in which terrorists communicated in 2005 via
Hmm.
the internet, stuff like that. I had to delve in quite deep into quite obscure publications, and
Okay.
read quite a lot of books about politics as well, to
Hmm.
get that right. But the thing with research is that you can very easily get bogged down
Hmm.
and read too much, and you don't want to bore the reader, but you need to know it to have the confidence to write it.
Yes.
It may end up just being small little
Hmm.
sentences that pay lip service to some fact that you've discovered, but you can't dwell on it, because obviously it's going to get in the way. Any writer will tell you need to know that stuff before you can really write anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's inevitable. I mean, the danger of research, of course, is that you can end up going down rabbit holes, and read and read and read, and never end up
Hmm.
writing a word. But so that's, you've got to be wary about that. But it's important, I think, and all writers will tell you that, particularly those, I suppose, who write anything in the realms of historical fiction, or sort of thrillers based on political situations and stuff. You've got to know your facts, otherwise
Okay.
it's just not going to ring true. So I
Okay.
think that they're both experience and research are obviously both important, and they don't have to live side by side. As I said, my first book was based entirely on my own experience and imagination. But
Hmm.
both are key elements, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yes. So, and okay, on a light note, from you being an author, what is your favorite genre?
Ah, yes. Well, that's interesting. I don't, to be honest, I don't really have one. I like to read, sort of most genres really. Although having said that, I don't. There are genres I don't really read much. I don't read a huge amount of romance, for instance. But I suppose I like, sort of literary fiction and sort of, I do like thrillers and
Hmm.
historical fiction. I suppose I probably veer towards that probably more.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, and one more question again on the same thing. From a author's perspective, what is relatively easy? Is it a fiction writing or a non-fiction writing?
Oh well, I haven't really. I mean, apart from this book, which isn't really. I mean, it's non-fiction, but it was kind of. I mean, I had a fairly easy role in that because I was just asking questions. But
Mm.
um, I mean, I've done a. I have written a blog. I suppose that's non-fiction. I suppose to some extent. But I think writing fiction, for me anyway, is more challenging than writing non-fiction. Um,
Okay.
because, but also it's rather more enjoyable. But
Mm.
it is more challenging because I mean, because you've got to make it credible. I mean, writing non-fiction is kind of it's almost formulaic. It's you just got
Yes.
to have the facts there. Um,
Yeah.
but I haven't. Having said that, I've not written a proper non-fiction book as
Okay.
such. I mean, I wouldn't really class this book as this. Yeah, it's an interview book. It's it's different.
Okay.
But yeah,
Great. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so just before we leave, this is my last question for the day, and I
okay.
would like to have one good advice from you for the first-time writers.
For new writers.
New advice, yes, from you
Yeah.
for the
Okay.
first-time writers.
Well, I mean, I always say to people that you should just go at it and don't be put off by um, any if you're criticized. I mean, just take it on board and you know just enjoy your writing. I think the most important thing with writing is to enjoy what you write and to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. And by all means, if people offer criticism, if it's constructive criticism,
Yeah,
that's great. You can take it on board, but you don't have to abide by it. In fact, I mean, the thing to bear in mind is that actually, with a lot of all writing, there are no rules. I mean, you're there to, to create whatever you want to create. I mean, a lot of writers tend to, do unconventional things. I mean, you could look at the writing of, for example, Kurt Vonnegut, the great American author who broke all the rules. I mean, everyone thought he was mad, but he ended up writing some classics.
mm,
Slaughterhouse Five is a terrific book that just broke all the known at the time the rules, and he did things that were very unconventional. So I think you just have to discover your own way of writing
yeah,
and enjoy it, and that's it. I mean, um, yeah,
great.
that's what I'd
Thank
say.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that advice. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you just just enjoy what you write. So that takes you where you want to be. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, and yes, that's it for today from me
Okay.
and yeah, Alex. And thank you so much. And I think where do we source these books? Like, are they available on Amazon?
Yeah, well, all my books are available on Amazon. In fact, what I say is that if your listeners haven't, if they read on ebook, I'd
Hmm.
tell them both my previous books are available free to download as an ebook. I've kept
Okay.
them free deliberately because I just want people to read them. So, Sleeping with the Blackbirds and The Chairman are both available as free as ebooks. They're
Okay.
also available as in hardback and paperback. But if you're into ebooks, well,
Mhm.
download them free while you can. The other book, 100 Ways to Write a Book, that is now available as an ebook. It's a lot cheaper.
Okay.
very much cheaper. It's about, in the English one, it's about £1.49,
Okay.
as opposed to I think it's about £12, £13, which is, because it's such a big book. But
Okay.
that is available as an ebook, and it's all available from Amazon. Yeah, they're all available from Amazon.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alex, for
Not at all. My
sharing.
pleasure. Thank you, and it's very nice to speak to you today.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, and for sharing, for giving us your time, and sharing all your experiences and knowledge with a lovely audience here tonight. And
Not at all.
yes, thank you so much, and ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's been a delight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day. Have a good day. So,
Thank
ladies
you.
and gentlemen, that's it from us today. And I'm sure you all must have enjoyed the session as much as I enjoyed. We enjoyed having the conversation. Thank you, everybody in the room and who are watching us live. And see you all again next week with another great book and another great author. Take care and see you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.